it's so cringe. Wow. If you can get through hell, you're ready for anything. I would rather someone outright flame me. I won't name names, but it's just disappointing. Oh, the difference is just painful. Alright, what's up guys? Fire here. Today I'm going to be talking about what is the difference between NA solo queue, or solo queue, and Korean solo queue. The first thing I think about when I think about OCE solo queue and NA solo queue, I'm making this off the top of my head, but OCE and NA, a lot of the differences really just come from the imports. I'm gonna be honest. Like, if NA did not have the money they had, I would not tell the difference between OCE and NA, I'm pretty sure. Like, even though NA hasn't done well internationally, the level is pretty decently high, and that is because of imports. So without those imports, I think the region would be really, really bad. Which brings me to my next point about OCE solo queue. I guess what you would say is what NA would be without imports. Like, really low level. So what do I mean by really low level? Because it's so easy to just talk shit without actually understanding why. And why I think it's low level is because people don't take risks. In Western culture, it's like people care more about not being blamed for being the obvious one that's dying, because I guess dying is the most obvious form of you're the one to blame. Whereas in Korean solo queue, dying is not the form of being blamed. That's not, obviously if you're going 0-5, that's extreme, but if you're on 0-2 or whatever, that's not, you're not gonna get flamed for that. You're gonna get flamed when you make one big mistake mid-game and you ruin the whole game for the team, or you constantly get caught. You could be 5-0 and then you constantly get caught later in the game, and everyone will flame the shit out of you. I think that's one of the big reasons why Korean solo queue is much better, is just because people will flame you for random reasons. Like, you could ping someone one time and they'll run it down. It's like, that's better than the mentality people have in OCE and NA. It's where everyone's so scared of fucking up that they don't do anything, and we're just seeing Yumi and Lulu every game in support role. I'm gonna touch on that later, right? Like, the weakest roles, or weakest role, is for sure support. And it's crazy because, like, including myself, a lot of players could play support better than these support mains because they're absolute garbage, and they only play like range supports because they have no idea how to play the game aggressively. They just know, okay, if I get to a certain power spike, I can shield my teammates and my teammates are gonna carry me. Support, I'm gonna help people. Like, the word support doesn't freaking mean that you just, like, you're just a useless dog who just walks around. No, like, you literally, support, in my opinion, is the second jungle role, but you have to lane, obviously, but it's pretty much the second jungle role, and you can literally carry games by yourself. And obviously, supports, compared to Season 2 to now, they make so much more gold, and also do a lot more damage. So, that was a little side topic, but back to OCE and NA. So, yeah, I think I've covered OCE basically. It has a very similar problem with NA. Even though there's so many imports, it's crazy how bad, like, the rest of the region is compared to the pro players. And I say this because Tyler 1 comes to mind, honestly. Like, people look up to Tyler 1 in NA, the younger demographic. In Korea, people look up to Faker. That is just, that's all that pretty much is to that. Like, obviously we're not going to get younger talent if people are looking up to Twitch streamers who don't give a shit about the competitiveness of the game. And the fact that obviously Tyler is actually not a bad player, but he's just a perfect example of the attitude, and people take his attitudes like seriously and model that, and then you just get a bunch of idiots in solo queue that just, they think what they're doing is like funny, where actually it's a competitive game. Maybe it's not if you're in gold, but it is if you're in challenger. But they make it into a joke because they've reached a certain level and now they're playing with certain players, and now they think they're in like the cool kids club or some shit, when they're actually goddamn terrible compared to like the highest level. Well, let's just say the highest level is NA pro players. That highest level, they're actually terrible. And I keep mentioning supports because specifically supports, like, people role swap to support and play support better than all these support players, you know? That's how garbage they are. And that is something that I won't stop talking about because it's absolutely disgusting. The difference between Korean supports and NA supports, like, the game completely changes because supports snowball the game so hard if you know how to actually snowball the game with support. Like, I'm just thinking about Korean soccer. Almost every game I played was 15 minutes or 25 minutes in Korea. And that does not mean that the games were higher quality. It just means that people know how to snowball, but also people know how to just give up. So I don't think Korea is the perfect, beautiful land where it's just the highest level. Mentality and attitude also is a big part of what is the highest level. So NA to Korean solo queue, let's talk about that. What are the differences? Well, I'll say Korean solo queue, people value mechanics much more. And I think this goes back to who people look up to, who people are inspired by. Again, people are inspired by Twitch streamers in NA, whereas in Korea, they have bloody academies set up for high school students, and their moms freaking put them in like it's football, right? Like football academies, like they do that in Korea. Like they've been doing that in Korea. Like that's a different mentality. That's a different culture. Like yes, even without that, just the idea that if you're a challenger, you get so much respect. That's why I like Korea so much, honestly. Because it is freaking hard. It is absolutely hard. If you get NA rank 1, I probably get less respect than if I got challenger in Korea. You know what I mean? That's where the big difference comes in. No one cares if you get challenger in NA. I got like rank 1, 2, 4 in NA. And I got some publicity, but like not as much as when I was top 10 in Korea with one account. You know what I mean? So like obviously both are hard to do, but it's just the idea that there's so much more respect and admiration for good play compared to like NA, which is like the respect and admiration comes from humor and entertainment and being edgy and funny. Like it's so cringe. But I'm speaking more to my observations rather than my judgments, so just let my judgments be my judgments. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously streaming is another pathway / career, but I'm talking about competitiveness and solo queue. I don't see it the way other people see it, maybe, but like I said before, NA has the similar issues to OCE. Even with the imports, it's really passive play. People try not to make mistakes. It's a mentality. People are scared of getting blamed. People are like really passive aggressive, and it's like absolutely cringe. I would rather someone outright flame me than try to like be really passive aggressive. Whereas in, like I said, in Korean solo queue, people don't care, man. They'll rip into you, sometimes completely unwarranted. They'll run it down, etc. And that's the bad side of Korean solo queue. But in my opinion, that builds mentality. If you can get through hell, basically, you're ready for anything. A lot of NA players come over, they post they got master in like I remember recently, I won't name names, but I remember recently, the last boot camp, that, you know, certain players came. Well, this has always been a trend, but very recently, any LCS player comes, he's like really happy, he's posting on Twitter, and then as soon as he starts getting hard stock, master slash grandmaster, starts changing his name and being really insecure. So like, that's where, you know, it's just wow. Like, I don't think NA players are that bad. Like, a lot of these LCS players can get challenger. It's just the mentality. You have to have like a very strong mentality, because games get out of your control. Because in NA you can just farm and like, yeah, I get given this, I get given that, but things snowball out of control. The enemy team snowballs. Your teammates are helping the enemy team sometimes, honestly, snowball the game because they just want to get out, like certain things like that. You know, so that's why it's just disappointing, I guess, to see NA solo queue players like think like this, because there's so many reasons, I guess, to blame someone other than losing lane. Like, but people only care about deaths because that's like the most obvious thing to them. But this, if you reach high challenger in Korea, people will get mad over, so like, you not being aggressive. Like, when has someone pinged you for not going in NA solo queue or solo queue? Like, it's just not a thing. People only care when you go too far in, but in Korean solo queue, you get flamed for not going in, you know? Honestly, that's a beautiful example. And yeah, I'm gonna speak on that aggressiveness. So again, Korean solo queue, people are really trying to carry the game by themselves, and obviously that is a downfall, because when you start losing, you don't know how to change your kind of mindset, and people just run it down. Like, in Irelia will literally go 0-10. If she dies to like 2 ganks, like, she'll keep going, which I'm not gonna say is wrong, but depends on the situation. Sometimes you have to just keep going in, and no one will flame that Aurelia that goes 0-10, because they know that she has to keep going in sometimes. But people will flame, for example, the jungler, even if this Aurelia goes 0-10 at the end of the game, if I quote unquote didn't do enough for the team. So like, that is another great example, and it happens many times. Painful. Also, another thing about Korean solo queue is the meta. I've already touched a little bit on this. Like, supports, mid laners, everyone picks champions that snowball the game. No one's playing Kale unless you're Nemesis, or there's like a real Kale one trick that knows how to go through the early game. Like, I play with, for example, right, I play with this OCE Kale. He doesn't know how to manage, like, the skill gap is so big. Like, if they 1v1, I'm pretty sure this guy would beat this one trick OCE Kale with like one hand. Like, just knowledge gap, wave management, like, it's it's just, the difference is just, it's just way too much. Like, if you play a one trick scaling champ, at least know how to manage your wave and make sure that the other guy doesn't get to roam, you know what I mean? But people don't think or do anything about that. Whereas in Korean solo queue, you're like battle tested, bro. If you pick Diana, for example, in the jungle, you better know how to play her very effectively, because the game snowballs out of control. And this is not a style, by the way. I want to get rid of this idea that it's a style. The game, Riot has made the game that early game champions are going to be better. Like, regardless. They've made the game so that the game will end faster. So therefore, the game is more likely to snowball in the early game, because they've made plates, they've made Herald, They've already even said themselves they want to make the game faster, and the games have been faster. Why? Because of plates Herald second tier 2, which gives a shitload of gold as well. Scuttle, but obviously it's got nerfed. It was ages ago as well. Scuttle. And every champion they make is freaking broken. So like in Korean Soldier, everyone's picking early game champs, and if they're not, they at least know how to mitigate the damage of scaling champion. Best example I can give is like Viego, right? Everyone's trying to make plays in Korean servers, so it's much easier to counter. But there's nothing to counter in OCE if no one's trying to do anything. Everyone's just farming. Like, look at my win rate on Viego. It's 45% win rate. Lowest win rate besides Rengar. But 45% win rate on Viego. In Korean solo queue, it's my most played. It's 52% win rate. Alright, so this is like literally a perfect example. Like, I have a 52% win rate over 240 games, and I've played an O solo queue 45% win rate, only 11 games. That's, I mean, that just says everything. Whereas Viego's strengths rely in people being low, resetting, similar to Katarina and Master Yi. And this also probably speaks to a little bit of my skill right now, but it's still just a good example. It's so easy to snowball the game right now, but people in general are just too scared to take a risk, and they don't even do anything. Laners especially. And yeah, that pretty much covers it. I guess. Thank you guys for watching. A little something different. Peace.
Killing spree.
Do not make my hammer mad. Likes me. Now, back to finding that hero. Know what I could use? A cart. Sometimes you just gotta do it yourself.
You have slain an enemy.
Who knew there were so many heroes? safely take cover. Out of my way! Some things are too important to give up on. Freeze! Gotta see this through. Wait, what did I come back for? The hammer does most of the work. I just swing it. Go to the face. And that, 3 pigtails. How Demacian of you. Go to the face. Got it. Sure do a lot of walking. Freeze!
Enemy double kill. Shut down.
All in.
Has been slain.
One thing about me, I'm not good at staying down. I'll just add it to my other hand. That's ridiculous. You sit. Man, quests are hard. Really go for a nap. Heel to the face. You are definitely not the hero. One. Hope it's not dented. Okay, I admit it. I'm lost. I'm in 100%. That's everything, right?
Your turret has been destroyed.
What do you mean my camera's too big? Not make my hammer mad. Not dented. I hope the hero likes me. Heel to the face.
An ally has been slain. Killing spree. Your team has destroyed a turret. Ally has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed.
Let's try that again. Heel to the face. Who knew there were so many heroes? Fielding. You like to fight? Where's my hammer? Yes, I'm going this way now. Heel to the face. Some things are too important to give up. Gotta see this through. hammer does most of the work. I just swing it. Anyone seen a hero around here? I'd have thought. 3 pigtails.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Shield to the face. Coming down. I sure do a lot of walking. Left hand. Every step is one step closer. Hammer! Yep, it's even heavier than it looks.
Triple kill. An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. Shut down. Aced.
That's okay. The long game. Me? The hero? Nah, that's ridiculous. Shield to the face. Man, quests are hard. Ugh. Really go for a nap.
Enemy rampage.
Okay, I admit it.
You
I'm
have
lost.
slain an enemy. An enemy has been slain. Enemy double kill. Aced. Defeat.